On May 12, 2017, a 15th century mausoleum in southeastern Turkey began to move. It weighed 1,100 tons. It sat on a self-propelled modular transporter with 191 wheels and 44 hydraulic jacks, each rated at 50 tons of lifting capacity. And over roughly 4 hours, watched by engineers from the Turkish firm Erbu and the Dutch company Bresser Eurasia, it crawled 2 kilometers uphill to a new resting place, 63 meters above the rising Tigris River. The Zainal Bey tomb was built between 1473 and 1475 for the son of Ak Koyunlu ruler Uzun Hasan, killed at the Battle of Otluk Beyli. Its walls are clad in glazed turquoise and dark blue brick mosaics. It is the only surviving monument of the entire Ak Koyunlu dynasty anywhere in Anatolia, and the only structure with Central Asian Timurid-style architecture west of Iran. The move cost $4.2 million. The monitoring system failed partway through. The generator ran out of fuel at the start of the climb. Civil engineer Ahmet Turer would later tell National Geographic that they managed to relocate it without waking it up. But the tomb was one of 8 monuments Turkey chose to save. Behind those 8, the government left 5,500 hand-carved caves, a Neolithic settlement mound with radiocarbon dates reaching 9,750 BC, and the stone piers of what may have been the largest single-span medieval bridge on Earth. All of it now sits beneath 50 to 60 meters of reservoir water. And the question we need to ask is not why Turkey built this dam. They wanted electricity. The question is why every international institution designed to prevent exactly this kind of destruction tried, then failed, and then stopped trying. We are going to walk through that sequence. And what it reveals applies to far more than one city in southeastern Turkey. The place we are talking about is called Hasankeyf. It sits in Batman province, along the upper Tigris River, roughly 300 kilometers east of Diyarbakir. For most of the 20th century, it was a small Kurdish and Arab town of perhaps 3,000 people, surrounded by cliffs riddled with caves and crowned by a citadel that had been occupied, rebuilt, and fought over for at least 1,700 continuous years. The Romans built a fortress here under Emperor Constantius II in the mid-4th century AD. The Byzantines held it. The Arab Ayyubids expanded it. The Turkic Artukids made it a regional capital. And the Ak Koyunlu left behind the tomb we just described. At any given time, Hasankeyf held Roman floor mosaics, Byzantine churches, Arab mosques, Turkmen bathhouses, and Ottoman warehouses, layered on top of each other like a cross-section of Mesopotamian history. The citadel included a secret gate carved into the cliff face, called a Gizli Kapı, with a staircase descending through the rock for emergency evacuations during sieges. Sir Walter Raleigh mentioned Hasankeyf in his 1614 History of the World as the city of Hasan Trefa, otherwise Fortis Petra. He believed the biblical Eden lay just downstream. During a 2018 excavation around the Imam Abdullah Mosque, archaeologists recovered a Sasanian seal depicting a mountain goat, dated to the early 7th century AD, published by Erdal and colleagues in 2020 in the journal TÜBA-KED. It was the first Sasanian artifact ever found at Hasankeyf. But the deep archaeology goes further. 2 kilometers east of the medieval town, a Neolithic mound called Hasankeyf Hoyuk was excavated beginning in 2011 by Yutaka Miyake of the University of Tsukuba in partnership with Batman University rector Abduselim Ulukam. They found pre-pottery Neolithic A remains, radiocarbon dated to roughly 9,750 BC to 8,900 BC. That puts it in the same cultural horizon as Kortik Tepe, Kayonu, and Bonkuklu Tarla, and it is slightly older than Göbekli Tepe's monumental building phase. The burials were striking. A 2022 paper by Kondo, Tashiro, and Miyake in Anthropological Science analyzed 124 individuals and found skeletons painted with black lines on the limb bones, a ritual practice shared with Kortik Tepe. Life expectancy was estimated at 27 to 30 years based on dental wear. A separate 2021 study by Carter and colleagues used EDXRF analysis on 332 obsidian artifacts and found the population preferred Nemrut dog obsidian over the closer Bingöl source, with the material arriving by river transport. That is evidence of organized Tigris logistics in the 10th millennium BC. Then there was the bridge. The old bridge of Hasankeyf was constructed by Artukid Sultan Fakhr ad-Din Kara Arslan, now dated by scholars to approximately 1147 to 1167 AD, based on the primary chronicle of Ibn al-Azraq al-Fariki. The central arch spanned roughly 40 meters. The total structure stretched about 150 meters, standing 19 meters at the piers. Its most unusual feature was a removable wooden central span designed to be dismantled during sieges. The stone piers carried carved zodiac reliefs, already badly worn when the French archaeologist Albert Gabriel surveyed them in 1932. In 2015, the Turkish government encased the piers in new stone reinforcement. Heritage experts called it irreversible damage. And then the dam came. Before we get to the drowning, we need to understand the dam and the money behind it. The Ilisu Dam sits 56 kilometers downstream of Hasankeyf on the Tigris River, in Dargaçit district, Mardin province. It is a concrete face rock-fill dam, 135 meters high and 1,820 meters long at the crest. Its reservoir covers 313 square kilometers, holds 10.4 billion cubic meters of water, stretches 244 kilometers along the river, and reaches a maximum depth of nearly 127 meters. The power station houses 6 Francis turbines producing 1,200 megawatts, generating about 3,833 gigawatt-hours per year, roughly 1.5 to 2% of Turkey's total electricity. The project was first surveyed in 1954. It was formalized in 1997. And that is when the financing story gets interesting. The original consortium included Sulzer Hydro of Switzerland, Balfour Beatty of the UK, Skanska of Sweden, and Improgilo of Italy. Skanska pulled out in September 2000. Balfour Beatty and Improgilo withdrew on November 13, 2001. A second consortium formed between 2005 and 2007, anchored by Andritz of Austria, Alstom of Switzerland, and Zublin of Germany, with export credit guarantees of roughly 450 million euros from the Austrian OEKB, German Euler Hermes, and Swiss SERV agencies. Those guarantees came with 153 binding conditions covering resettlement, environment, cultural heritage, and downstream water flows. A committee of experts was appointed, including former World Bank sociologist Michael M. Kernea and Bogazici University professor Zeynep Ahunbey. The experts visited the site 4 times between December 2007 and June 2009. Each visit documented the same thing. Turkey was expropriating land before consulting affected communities. Access was denied to monitors in the summer of 2008. No income restoration plan existed. No grievance mechanism had been built. On July 7, 2009, all 3 European governments canceled their guarantees simultaneously. It was the first time in history that an export credit guarantee had ever been withdrawn on environmental, social, or cultural heritage grounds. Environmentalist Ulrich Eichelmann of EC, Watch Austria, called it one of the biggest successes by NGOs in Europe in recent years. Turkey did not stop. Akbank, Garanti Bank, and state-owned Halkbank replaced the European funding with roughly 300 to 350 million euros. Construction shifted to AKP-aligned firms, Nurol and Cengiz. The final cost reached somewhere between $1.7 and $2.4 billion, depending on whether you include resettlement. And the human cost was significant. Government estimates counted 61,620 people physically or economically displaced across 199 settlements, 85 of them fully flooded. NGOs and Reuters put the figure closer to 78,000. The government built only 4 new resettlement villages. Court-appointed experts found that DSY, the State Hydraulic Works Agency, offered affected families on average 20% below fair market value for their land. Residents who did not own property between 2013 and 2016 received nothing. Roughly 10,000 landless families were simply left out of the compensation framework entirely. Now, what did Turkey actually save before the water arrived? 8 monuments were physically relocated to a 120-hectare cultural park, built 2 kilometers north and 63 meters higher than the old town. The Zeynel Bey tomb in May 2017. The Imam Abdullah Zawiya in 2018. The Artuklu Hammam, weighing 1,500 tons, moved on 256 wheels over 3 kilometers in 2 hours and 15 minutes in August 2018, at a cost of about $7.1 million. The Sultan Suleiman Mosque had its 36-meter minaret dismantled stone by stone. The Kok Mosque, the Ayyubi Mosque, and the Risk Mosque on December 16, 2019, was the last to move, weighing 1,700 tons. What they left behind tells the rest of the story. All 5,500 caves, the Hasankeyf Hoyuk Neolithic mound, the old bridge piers, the Mardanika Mosque excavation, the Salihiyya Gardens, and the historical bazaar, which construction crews demolished in November 2019. The demolition exposed Roman foundations 2,000 years old that had never been excavated. There was no time. The reservoir had already begun to fill. If you are watching this on a channel that covers archaeological mysteries and hidden history, you know that stories like this deserve to be told. If you agree, a subscription helps us keep going. We have more of these ahead. Now, we mentioned a photographer being arrested. That story has never been told in a documentary like this, and it matters more than you might think. On May 8, 2017, 4 days before the Zeynel Bey tomb began its journey uphill, a French photographer named Mathias Depardon was detained in Hasankeyf by Turkish authorities. Depardon was on assignment for National Geographic, documenting dam projects on the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He was held in a deportation center in Gaziantep for 32 days. He went on a hunger strike from May 21st to May 28th. He was released on June 9th, 2017, only after French President Emmanuel Macron personally lobbied Turkish President Erdogan. He was never formally charged. The Committee to Protect Journalists and Reporters Without Borders ran a campaign under the hashtag #FreeMathias. His 2020 book Trans-Anatolia documented what he saw before the arrest. The message was clear. Documenting Hasankeyf's destruction was not welcome. And this connects to a pattern. Turkey never submitted Hasankeyf to UNESCO, not for the main World Heritage List, not even for the tentative list. UNESCO Director Mechtild Rossler confirmed this publicly to Deutsche Welle. A 2011 study by Zeynep Ahunbey and conservation ecologist Ozge Balkis for the Turkish nature organization Doga Derneği concluded that Hasankeyf and the surrounding Tigris Valley met 9 of 10 UNESCO criteria, a distinction they described as potentially unique on Earth. Europa Nostra placed it on its 2016 7 Most Endangered list. The World Monuments Fund flagged it in 2008. None of it mattered, because UNESCO protection requires a country to nominate its own site. Turkey held that card and never played it. The legal challenges failed in sequence. Lawyer Murat Kano filed cases at the Batman Administrative Court and the Council of State from 2000 onward. On January 7, 2012, the Council of State ruled in favor of TMMOB, the Turkish Engineering Union, and ordered an immediate halt based on a missing environmental impact assessment. The government bypassed the ruling with a new circular. The Turkish Constitutional Court ruled on December 25, 2018, that the dam fell under state discretion and was beyond its jurisdiction. The European Court of Human Rights rejected the appeal on February 21, 2019, declining to recognize a universal right to cultural heritage under the European Convention. 5 months later, the reservoir began to fill. The water rose at roughly 15 centimeters per day through February 2020. By March, the lower town was under 50 to 60 meters of Tigris water. The old bridge piers disappeared under 80 to 90 meters. Roughly 40 families had remained in Old Hasankeyf until the final weeks, with running water for 1 hour per day and one grocery store still operating. Firat Argun, whose family had lived in Hasankeyf for 300 years, told CBS News in August 2019 that he felt as if he had just arrived in the world and had to start over. By December 2019, reporters described a little square in the center of the town, alive with people taking photographs, laughing, and drinking tea. The dead were the last to leave. Families exhumed graves and relocated remains before the flood arrived. Now here is where this story expands beyond archaeology and becomes something larger. Iraq's share of the Tigris River was approximately 21 billion cubic meters per year before the Ilisu Dam. By 2018, that figure had dropped to 9.7 billion. By 2025, Iraqi water official Abdul Muttalib Rafat reported it had fallen below 5 billion. The Arab Center for Washington concludes that Turkey's southeastern Anatolia project, called GAP, has reduced Iraq's combined Tigris and Euphrates supply by roughly 80% since 1975. One peer-reviewed hydraulic model published by Ahmadi and colleagues in 2023 projects that full operation of Ilisu plus the planned Sizre Dam will reduce downstream flow by more than 70%. In late 2025, Iraq was experiencing its driest year since 1933, with total reserves at roughly 10 billion cubic meters versus a seasonal norm of 18 billion. The Mesopotamian marshes in southern Iraq, inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site on July 17, 2016, were reported as nearly entirely dry by the end of 2022, with seawater from the Persian Gulf pushing upriver as fresh flow declined. In April 2024, Erdogan made his first state visit to Baghdad since 2011 and signed 24 agreements, including a 10-year water cooperation framework tied to a $17 to $20 billion Iraq Development Road project with the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. On November 2, 2025, the foreign ministers of both countries signed a follow-up mechanism creating what amounts to an oil for water arrangement. Iraq sells oil into a fund that pays Turkish contractors to modernize Iraqi water infrastructure. It is a framework in which Turkey controls the flow and sells the solution. Syria's situation compounds it. The 1987 Turkey-Syria Protocol commits Turkey to releasing a minimum of 500 cubic meters per second from the Euphrates at the Syrian border. No equivalent fixed quota exists for the Tigris. Since January 2021, Kurdish authorities in Rojava and the Rojava Information Center report that Turkey has been releasing under 200 cubic meters per second, while Turkish-backed forces seized the Aluk pumping station during Operation Peace Spring in October 2019. Turkey has never ratified the 1997 UN Watercourses Convention. It voted against it, alongside China and Burundi, while 103 nations voted in favor. President Süleyman Demirel articulated the Turkish doctrine at the Ataturk Dam in 1992, when he said that neither Syria nor Iraq can lay claim to Turkey's rivers any more than Ankara could claim their oil. That doctrine has not changed in 34 years. The water, and the heritage beneath it, belongs to whoever controls the valve. We started this story with a tomb on wheels. 1,100 tons, 191 wheels, 44 hydraulic jacks, 2 kilometers uphill, 4 hours. The engineering was precise. The execution was real. Nobody disputes that Turkey moved the Zeynel Bey tomb with extraordinary care. But consider what that care looks like next to what was left behind. A Neolithic mound where people lived and died and painted their dead with black lines on the bones 12,000 years ago. A bridge designed with a removable central span so a besieged city could cut its own throat rather than surrender. 5,500 caves that held families from the Bronze Age to the year 2019 until the water pushed them out. In 1964, UNESCO mobilized 50 countries and spent $80 million to save Abu Simbel from Egypt's Aswan Dam. Engineers cut the temples into 1,035 blocks of 20 to 30 tons each and reassembled them 65 meters higher and 200 meters inlet and end. That rescue directly created the 1972 World Heritage Convention. 60 years later, Hasankeyf tested whether that convention had teeth. It did not. And Hasankeyf is not alone. Turkey's own Alianoy, a 2nd century Roman healing spa associated with the physician Galen, was buried under sand and then 30 meters of water by the Yortanli Dam in early 2011. Only 20% of the site had been excavated. Archaeologist Ahmet Yaras said he felt like a scientist banned from his own laboratory. China's Three Gorges Dam inundated more than 1,200 archaeological sites. The original salvage budget of 2 billion yuan was slashed to 300 million yuan, an 88% cut. In 2000, the Hellenistic city of Zeugma in southeastern Turkey was partially saved from Turkey's Biricik Dam only because American philanthropist David W. Packard read a New York Times article and wrote a $5 million emergency check. Hasankeyf had no such patron. Every guardrail was tested. Every guardrail failed. The export credit agencies walked away in 2009, the first time in history, and the dam was built with Turkish bank money. The European Court of Human Rights declined jurisdiction in 2019. UNESCO was never asked. The downstream countries protested and then signed oil for water deals. The ancient city of Hasankeyf did not drown because of an engineering decision. It drowned because the international heritage system is enforceable only where states consent. Turkey, having watched Abu Simbel for 50 years, understood that perfectly. And somewhere downstream, the Tigris still flows, a little quieter than it used to.